Hey everybody, blah, blah. Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. Thanks to all of you who have newly subscribed, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider going ahead and doing that. It definitely supports my channel. So today is going to be all poker hands, no limit Texas Hold'em. But before I get into those hands, let me give you just a little bit of context. I haven't played very much no limit Texas Hold'em in the past year, but I've been studying. I will actually put a link below in the description box to my affiliate link for Red Chip Poker, which is the poker curriculum I've been using. It's really good for the value. More on that later, but check that out if you're interested. So I've been studying No Limit Texas Hold'em, but I've had this resistance to playing. I think after playing Omaha and mixed games, Hold'em has felt kind of boring, which it's not, but it's a different game. It's just different. I've also recently become obsessed with the idea of getting some new camera equipment. I really want to get a better microphone and a better camera. The camera that I have is it's fine, but I think I could do a lot more really great stuff for this channel if I had some updated equipment. So looking at all of that stuff online, it's gonna put me out a little over $1,000. So in order to motivate myself to play No Limit Texas Hold'em, I said, hey, why not do a bankroll challenge where I will play Hold'em and make money to buy this camera equipment that I really want. So I'm starting with $300 for my initial little No Limit Hold'em bankroll, and I'm gonna try to run that money up to $1,300 in order to have the money to buy this new camera equipment. I played 2 sessions of 1-1-2 No Limit Hold'em at Lucky Chances this week. Let's go over those hands and check out my results. Early in the session, I pick up pocket jacks from under the gun +2. I have about 150 in my stack, and there are various stacks at the table. Most of the stacks are 200 or under. There's not many people who have over 200 in their stack. Anyways, the straddle is on, and I size up here with my raise. My reason for showing this hand is actually because of a tell that I gave off, but let me go ahead and tell you the action. I raise under the gun +2 with my pocket jacks. Immediately to my left, a short stack player goes all in, and then the next player to his left also goes all in for less. Now it folds around to the loose aggressive player in the big blind, who asks the dealer if I can re-raise. The dealer is taking a long time to respond. The dealer's actually not answering his question at all. But I know that based on the size of my raise and the player to my left who moved all in, his raise covers the threshold and I'm gonna be able to re-raise. So because the dealer's taking a long time, the action is slowed down, this loose aggressive player on the big blind is asking if I can re-raise. I just answer his question and I say, it's illegal, it would be a legal raise. Yeah. Then the loose aggressive player snap folds. I gave off a massive tell by answering his question. We ended up being up against ace king and ace king with our pocket jacks, and an ace came on the flop, so that hand just played itself. But I wanted to share this with you because I gave off such a huge tell by answering the loose aggressive player's question. I should have just waited for the dealer to respond. We give off massive tells with our voices. It's not just in the words that we say, but our vocal cords are actually connected to our nervous system and to our heartbeat. So there's micro tells or frequencies that people can pick up on in the tone of your voice just by hearing the sound of your voice. So I should have just kept quiet right there. Regardless of the situation, regardless of the outcome, don't give off tells with your voice. In this next hand, we are in the hijack with ace queen offsuit. There are 2 limpers in front of us, and just as an FYI, at Lucky Chances in the 1-1-2 game, it's $1 on the button, $1 small blind, $2 big blind. It's actually $4 if you want to limp in. So there were 2 limpers in front of me that each had put $4 in. I make a raise to $12, and one of the limpers, who's a loose aggressive player, calls, the other folds. The flop comes 8-8-5 with 2 diamonds. I'm looking at my notes right now and not at the actual recording of this hand, so I can't remember if the action checked through on the flop or if I bet. Either way, I think this would be a fine place to continuation bet. Let me know what you think. The 8 and the 5 are gonna definitely favor my opponent's range, but I don't hate a c-bet here personally. So I think it checks through on the flop, and the turn comes an offsuit queen. When the turn comes an offsuit queen and my opponent checks to me, I think I'm ahead by miles with my top pair top kicker, and there's a lot of things he can be calling me with. I value bet for 30 and my opponent calls. The river comes a 9 of diamonds, bringing in the most obvious straight draw, which is 6-7, or the flush draw. While I don't think my opponent necessarily has those hands, if I put in a bet right here and get check raised, I'm in a really uncomfortable position. And I have to ask myself something that Andre taught me pretty early on when I first started learning poker, which is what hands are calling you here and what hands can you get value from? And I couldn't really answer that question. If he had a ace high or a small pocket pair, would he call on the river? I don't know. If he had a flush or a straight, I think I would get check raised. I'm not sure. Maybe I missed value right here. Either way, I just check back and my loose aggressive opponent announces pair of sevens. So he had pocket sevens, and he might have hero called me there on the river if I put in another bet, especially if I bet something like a third pot. So yeah, so it's possible I did miss value. But again, I think I was playing a little bit conservatively, wanting to avoid getting myself in a sticky situation where I had to call a big check raise on the river. Let me know what you think. Did I miss value? Did I misplay this hand? What would you have done? In this next hand, I'm really not sure about my sizing, so let me know what you think. I'm in the small blind here with ace-jack offsuit. The big blind directly to my left has been doing the kill button. So he's putting out $8. It's $8 to limp, and he gets the final action. So two loose players limp in late position. I like to raise to $30, which I'm not really sure about my sizing here. My thinking at the time was just that this is a really loose game and I'm gonna get called probably. If I got 3-bet, I think I would have called too because of the looseness of the game and the particular players that I was up against. But I'm not sure. I might have been able to size down a little bit, maybe to 20 or 25, or even size up even more to 35 or 40. But yeah, let me know what you think here with my pre-flop raise of 30 with the ace-jack offsuit. So the big blind on the kill button calls behind me, and the other two players who limped also called. So now there's 120 in the pot, and we're going to a flop of Jack, Jack, Deuce with 2 diamonds. So we flop a really strong hand here, but I'm not in the mood to slow play. I definitely don't want to give away free cards to diamond draws. I think even with my hands that miss this flop, I would probably bet a high frequency of the time. So I decide that I want to bet. Now it's just a matter of determining what size. And I think a small sizing should do the trick. Hopefully it would get calls from draws and worse hands, or small pocket pairs, maybe even some ace highs. But I'm not sure. Maybe that sizing looked kind of fishy because as soon as I put out that $45, everybody pretty much snap folded behind. My guess is that they all just had a whole bunch of air. And I think I would have been getting called if they had something stronger than absolute air to continue with. I do think if someone had diamonds, I would have been called by diamonds. Whatever. I think this next hand is kind of a funny one. There was a very loose player at the table who played his entire range and played it pretty aggressively. I don't even know if aggressively is the word. He would just bet. He would just bet. So whatever you call that, aggressively or actively, that's how he was playing. So in this hand, I have pocket sevens and I'm out of position versus this super loose aggressive player and one player that I have in my notes as a tightish player. So whatever that means. I also have in my notes that this loose player kept putting me in tough spots by overbetting the pot when I had marginal made hands. So I kept having to decide, do I want to put in a massive amount of money into this pot when I have a relatively weak hand? So I realized that I needed to reconsider the way I was playing against this particular opponent, who was also in just about every hand. Just the way he was playing just about every hand, very loosely and just bet, and a lot of overbetting pot. So I raise pre-flop with my pocket sevens from out of position. The flop comes Jack 10-4 with 2 spades. I check the flop here, which I think might have been a mistake, but anyways, he checks back, so that's good news. More than likely he has absolutely nothing on this board. When he checks behind on the flop, I am preparing to fire just about every turn card because I think no matter what the turn card is, he is going to bet. And if I take the initiative, he'll probably just call or fold. But if I don't take the initiative, he's going to make an oversized pot, what do you call it? An over pot size bet? Pot size over bet? No, he's going to over bet the pot if I do not bet. If I just check to him, he's going to like blast a bunch of chips in. So when the turn brings the third spade, it's the 6 of spades. I'm not all too concerned that he has spades. I think he might have bet that on the flop, if that's what he was playing with. And I do have a blocker with my 7, which whatever, blocker, sometimes that means something, sometimes it's just whatever. There's 13 spades in the deck. I lead out for 15, he calls. The river is another 6 pairing the board, and at this point, I just want to get to showdown with my marginal hand, and I don't want to have to blast a bunch of chips into the pot with this like really wild player. And I think that if I check to him, again, he's going to overbet the pot. So I decide on a sizing of $25. I bet $25, he calls, I show my 7s, and he mucks. So that was a really good result there. I ended up going for value on accident. I was mostly just trying to get to showdown and avoid having to put a bunch of chips into the pot with what seemed like a pretty marginal hand to me. I essentially was just putting out a blocker bet here, and it ended up working out this time. Please share down below any strategies you have for combating players that like to overbet pot with their entire range, and how to play against them, especially if you have a marginal made hand. So those are actually the only 4 hands I want to go over from this one session. I ended up buying in for $300, cashed out for $650. So that's a great start to the bankroll challenge, a profit of $350. But don't worry, this video isn't over yet. I'm going to go ahead and include 4 more hands from my next session at Lucky Chances. In this game of 1-1-2 no limit hold'em, the game started off really tight and depressing. It was actually really sad. But unfortunately, I think some of the tight players got annoyed with each other and just started leaving the table, which was great because it made space for new, not tight, not boring players to come to the table, and the game got really, really good. There's a lot of action. There was a player who normally plays 2-3-5 that was over there that was splashing around and, you know, making a bunch of noise. So it ended up being a very good game, and let's go over a few of those hands. Okay, so it's a new day, a new session of 1-1-2 No Limit Texas Hold'em at Lucky Chances. I've been playing at this table a little while now, and I have about $660 in my stack. There's only one other player at my table who has a stack that covers mine. He's got about 7 or 750 in his stack, and most of the other stacks at the table are 200 or less. So there's only one player that covers me at the table, and I've been getting into a lot of pots with him. So we're sitting in the cutoff with ace-queen offsuit. There are 2 limpers in front of me, meaning they limp in for $4. Remember, at the 1-1-2 at Lucky Chances, you have to limp in for 4. So they each limp in for $4. I put in a raise, I make it 20. So there's a pretty good bit of action at this table, and I get called in 4 spots. So we are headed to the flop 5 ways. The last player who called is actually in the hijack directly on my right. And he announces before calling, he says, "I have no business being in this hand." And he tosses in the chips to call. So that's always fun to hear when you're headed 5 ways to a flop. So I'm not going to tell you what the flop was, at least not yet. Let me just tell you the action and let you guess what the flop might have been, or if the flop even mattered. So 3 loose players check in front of me, and then the guy on my right, who has no business being in the pot, also checks. There's $100, around $100 in the pot. What do you think I should do? I think a continuation bet is the only choice to make here. If the flop was particularly bad, I probably could have checked, but I think it makes sense to continuation bet a high percentage of the time here. So I chose a sizing of $45, which maybe, I don't know, maybe that was too small. Maybe I could have bet a little bit over half pot. This particular time I chose to bet a little bit under half pot because it was a dry, high and dry monotone. I don't know what you call it. As a static, that's the word for it. Because it was a static board, the board ran king, king, deuce on the flop. So I put in my bet of $45 and it folds around. That was a good result. Good result for us, even though I have ace high, probably still had the best hand in this situation. And we have all the kings in our range. Either way, I think we would have heard from a king had someone hit that flop. Probably would have even heard from a 2, maybe. I think when the board comes static like that, it very much favors our range. We could have taken the option of checking to try and let people catch up, but that doesn't make any sense. Why would I check here? Why would I check here? Is there a reason to check? Is there a reason to check back on this flop? I don't think so, but maybe there's an argument to be made for checking and letting people catch up and trying to get more money and more value. I don't know. That doesn't make sense. Some things just don't make sense. Sometimes you just want to take it down. Take it down on the flop.
Just take it down.
Just take that gift of the $80 everybody put in pre-flop. It's a gift. Okay, this next hand is actually more of just a fun tip, and special thanks to the dealers at Lucky Chances for putting up with my silliness. So a tip, if you want more action at your table and it's allowed at the casino, straddle. Put on a straddle or put on a kill. It seems like different card rooms and casinos have their own rules. At Lucky Chances, you can straddle from any position. They call it a kill. So while the action was heating up at this table, I started to straddle. And just to be extra silly and have extra fun and get a really good dynamic going at the table, I had some Christmas candy that I bought on sale, and I was tossing it in the pot with the kill. I was actually setting it on top of the little kill button while I was straddling, and it was so fun. People were having a good time, making jokes about the chocolate and winning the pot just to get the candy. It really brought some good energy to the table, and anytime you can get people having a good time, playing a little bit more silly or just taking themselves a little bit less seriously, that can be really good for the game. When you're feeling comfortable and when you're wanting to make the game more exciting, put on a straddle or put on a kill. Throw some candy into the pot. Maybe if it's allowed. You can always just ask and see what the dealer says. You're a part of the dynamic at the table too. So you actually have the power to shift the dynamic with your own behavior. If you're having fun and you're feeling comfortable, you're being a little bit silly, maybe you'll help some of the other players loosen up a little bit too and have a good time.
You won the chocolate and the money. I'm so proud of you.
Oh, I'm getting tired. I don't know if I've done this many hand reviews before. So I've got 2 more hands to review with you all. So I'm going to do my best to not lose my mind. Yet again, we are in Under the Gun +2 with pocket jacks. What? I like it. It folds around. Oh, I raise. I don't know how much I raised. I think I raised to like 20, 15 or 20. Hopefully you can see in the video because I don't have the video playing in front of me. So I made a raise. I think I raised to about 15 or 20. And it folds back around to the small blind, who is this good, loose, aggressive player who's been very silly and fun. By the way, I invited him to the meetup game that I am hosting on February 8th with Check Raise Charles, Andrew Locke, and P's and Q's Poker. Check out the info at pokermeetups.com. There you can register and find out additional information about the meetup game. But anyways, hopefully this guy will be there because he was very fun to play with. So after I put in my raise, the action folds around to my friend in the small blind, who announces, "Let's make it worth playing," and puts in a raise to $56. I'm obviously not going anywhere with pocket jacks, but this is the first time in the hours I've been playing at this table with this guy, this is the first time he has 3-bet me. So I'm not sure how much he's going to be getting out of line, but I also wouldn't put it past him because he's been doing some interesting things at the poker table. That said, I'm still putting him on a strong range. I think most of the time in 1-1-2, people are just playing pretty straightforward. I'm not saying people don't bluff. People definitely bluff, but people are not bluffing as much as they are playing straightforward, in my opinion. So I just go ahead and call his raise. The flop comes ace, queen, X, I believe it's rainbow, and our opponent from the small blind leads out for $56. He actually says same bet and puts out 56, which is kind of interesting. So I was feeling really uncertain about where I was in the hand, not wanting to put in another $56 on this board with 2 overcards, where I'm basically just hoping for a turn that is a jack. But yeah, I'm not really sure what turn card I want to see. It seems unlikely that I'll hit a turn card that improves my hand, that would make me want to continue, especially if he keeps barreling off. I talked to Andre about this hand afterwards, and he says that I should have called there, that a lot of times when players like this are bluffing, that they will make one standard continuation bet, and then when the opponent, me in this case, calls them on the flop, they're not going to continue on the turn. So Andre really could have been right about this. I don't know. Either way, I didn't call. I decided to fold face up, which I don't normally do, but because we kind of had this friendly banter going on, I folded face up. And he actually ended up folding face up, not folding face up. He turned his cards over as he scooped the pot, and he turned over pocket tens. I congratulated him, and I just said, you know, good bet. Like, that was hard for me to call with those 2 over cards on the board. I felt like I was put in a tough spot. Andre says that that was an easy call, that I should have called that $56, but I just wasn't sure what I was going to be able to continue with on the turn. So I don't know. So not too long after that pocket jacks hand that I folded face up, I end up in another hand with my good loose aggressive friend. I pick up pocket queens and the cutoff. My loose aggressive friend makes it $10 to go from middle position. And because I had messed up in the pocket jacks hand and a few other small pots against him, I decided that I was going to take a different approach. Normally I would 3-bet pocket queens, but I kind of just wanted to experiment with what it would be like to smooth call here. So that's what I did. I smooth called the 10. And talking to Andre about this hand later, Andre said that that was the wrong thing to do, that I definitely should have 3-bet. But in my defense, I was just kind of being experimental. So maybe it was a bad experiment, but let me tell you how the rest of the action went. So my loose aggressive friend bets 10. I smooth call, and the button and big blind call behind us. The flop comes ace, queen, X. I'm pretty sure it was rainbow. So we flop middle set and more than likely have our opponents crushed. Our loose aggressive friend bets $15. We call, and the big blind and button fold behind us. So we're now heads up versus our loose aggressive friend. When I call the 15, he makes a face. He makes a face like he's surprised and says, "I'm confused." I honestly don't remember what the turn card was, but he checks the turn, which is more evidence perhaps that I should have called the last hand with pocket jacks, because he might have given up on the turn. So anyways, he checks the turn and I take the lead. I bet 30. He actually says to me as I'm grabbing chips, he says, "Not too much, otherwise I won't call." So I grab 30, I bet 30. And he says, oh, okay, 30, that's the right amount. I can call just that amount. River card comes out, almost inconsequential. We have a very strong hand. Our opponent has shown weakness. I bet 50 and he quickly folds. So this is kind of a funny hand. I played it in an unconventional way that may have been very incorrect, but I'm also wondering if I had 3-bet pre-flop, I might have gotten less action out of this particular opponent. Either way, probably won't typically play pocket queens like that, but interested in hearing what you all think about smooth calling over pairs when you are sometimes playing a good loose aggressive player like this. So I ended up in this game for $300, cashed out for $715, so a nice profit of $415 there. And yeah, maybe Holdem doesn't suck. And maybe there are times when I do enjoy Holdem, particularly when the dynamics of the table are good and there are some fun moves that I can try out too. So far we started with $300 and have run the bankroll up to $1065, which is awesome. Better than I was anticipating, to be honest. So hopefully I can keep it going. Please stay tuned for the next part of this episode where I will certainly go over my next few sessions playing No Limit Texas Hold'em. For now, I'm headed to get some lunch at one of my favorite lunch spots with Andre, and then I'm gonna get back out there, get back in the mix, put some more kills on and some more chocolate in the pot and try to get a lot of action at Lucky Chances so I can keep this bankroll challenge going. Maybe Holdem doesn't suck. I don't know. Maybe it's great actually, and I've been undervaluing it all this time. Let me know what you guys think about this video, what you think about the hands. I know some of them were kind of weird. Maybe Holdem doesn't suck.